Well, I had a course at Mills College, and I was required to work in a presidential campaign. And I, for the first time, said, I'm going to flunk this course because I'm not going to get involved in politics. I don't believe in it. These guys aren't speaking to the issues that I think are important. And I was fully prepared to flunk the course. Well, I was president of Black Student Union, invited the first African-American woman elected to Congress, Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm, to Mills College. And Shirley Chisholm came, she spoke, and I was amazed at this woman. I had no idea there were black women in Congress, first of all. I had no idea there were women in Congress. And she announced that she was running for president. I said, oh my goodness, well maybe I'll reconsider my class and maybe I'll try to pass it now. So I went up to Mrs. Chisholm after she spoke and I said, you know, I have this course and I'm required to work in a field campaign in order to pass the class as part of my requirement. And I was about to flunk it, but maybe after listening to you, I mean, you're unbought and you're unbossed, and you said you're a catalyst for change. I said, you speak to all the issues that young women care about. And she looked at me and she says, my dear, and I had a big afro and my jeans, you know, I was very militant. She says, well, my dear, if you really believe in what you're talking about, you've got to register to vote. You've got to vote. You've got to take on the status quo. If you believe that the system needs to be changed, who else is going to change it? And so I ended up actually organizing the Shirley Chisholm Northern California presidential primary campaign for my class at Mills College with Sandra Gaines, who was a woman who was president of the student body, and with Sondre Swanson, who became my chief of staff and now is in the California legislature, and Wilson Riles Jr., who was an activist who then was elected to the city council. And the rest is history. I got an A in the class and we took over 10% of the vote in Alameda County. And I share that story because it takes that one person to mentor young women. It takes a person who can relate to women. And it takes someone to engage women and to challenge women and to make women understand that if they're not at the table, if they're not participating, then they're going to be dealt out of the equation.
It's absolutely crucial that minority communities participate in this dialogue so that they can bring their own voices to Moms Rising, to move on, to make sure that as we're working to make our democracy more reflective of the needs of the citizens, that their needs are met in a full way.
Every politician works for us because we pay their salaries with our tax dollars. And once people understand that, then they again get a sense of their own responsibility. So I believe that in doing voter registration, our job is to motivate people, you know, make them understand that they have the power to make the changes, but that they have to take responsibility.
The politicians are very smart, and they're going to respond to the issues of the voters. They do a lot of surveys. The first question they ask is, do you vote? If you vote and you tell me what your issues are, I'm going to respond to you. That's the politicians. So if you had a far more representative democratic process where more and more people are participating, then the issues would change. Their messages are to the people that vote. They don't care about the people that don't vote. They didn't put them in power.
What we found in 2006 that Latinos weren't voting for two reasons. One was that no one was asking them, and two, they didn't know the issues. So through our voter engagement programs, we're saying, okay, we're asking you, and we're going to share those issues with you. And I think that's what happens with the Latino community. I think, unfortunately, we get to a point that we feel like we don't know enough. So if we don't know enough, then we don't feel like we should be casting that vote. I can tell you from experience that there's folks that know a lot less than we do, and they're still casting that vote. So it's really empowering the community and saying, look, this is something that we should be prideful in. Definitely learn your issues, but at the same time, it's not rocket science.
We, as SEIU, believe that members have power. So it's different from Sylvia Ruiz, the political director, talking to the member. It's much more powerful when our janitor, who is a political activist, talks to another fellow coworker and tells her why she votes, why it's important that she vote and participate, why she makes sure that her kids who can vote, vote. and that she encourages her fellow workers to also participate and vote, and she takes that responsibility.
We did a campaign with the Dolores Huerta Foundation. We did a campaign in Arizona last year where we had a Latina to Latina get out the vote. And we just set up phone banks in Flagstaff, Phoenix, and Tucson, and all the way down to Yuma, Arizona, in those 4 areas. And we got Latinas, mostly college students, to just phone bank Latinas. And it was incredible. We had an incredible turnout. 2 of the most anti-immigrant congressmen were voted out of office, and one of them was replaced by a woman, Gabriela Gifford.
We're focusing on registered voters who are infrequent voters or never voters. So they became a citizen, they registered to vote, and they didn't ever vote. This last primary, we made live contacts with over 400 of the infrequent and never Filipino voters. And we did about the same in the November 2006 elections, which changed, the majority in Congress. And we found out there that 60% of the people that we had live contacts with actually voted.
Another area which has really helped to increase Chinese American voting has been the Chinese language newspapers. They do a much better coverage on the topic of elections and candidates and issues. And there are more newspapers and there are more television programs and there are more radio programs. So all of that also helps to make Chinese Americans more aware of what voting is all about.
Realistically, my young person isn't going to be reading the Wall Street Journal. So you need to be clever. But with that cleverness, you just need 2 or 3 percentage points from every ethnic group to be strong politically. That's all you need. So if you know how to find those folks, and what you find is that after you register someone, and after that person votes 3 times, they become life voters, and they usually become life voters for that party. The earlier you get to them, the earlier you get them engaged, the more likely that you're going to have a long-term residual value. That, talk about an investment, right? If you just spend, an extra $200 on that one person, all of a sudden you have a life voter that will influence other people as well.
If the women in the family register to vote, then all of the kids are going to vote. And the husbands are going to vote too, and the brothers are going to vote. The women are the ones that set the standards for the family, the political standards and the philosophies of that family. So the power of women is extremely important, and this is one way that we really need to exercise our authority and our power to set that standard for our family to get people to vote.
One of the things I like to say is when you empower a Latina, it isn't just one person. It's the whole family and in turn the whole community. And in one way, it's sort of like the Verizon network. The person with the whole network, it's like, here's one Latina, and just look a little deeper and see how many people are standing behind her.
Women have tended, when they are in office, to do the things that are more humane. They think in terms of equality. They do think about families. They do think about children. They do think about the inequities that we have in our society. And they are less likely than men to give it all up very quickly for power.
It is hard to be involved in politics, and yet is the most important thing that we can do if we are going to take control of our own destiny as a country, but also as our own destiny about the lives that each of us live in this country.
Well, let me tell you, I'm a firm believer that in addition to voting, we have to keep the street heat on, and we have to march, we have to rally.